Welcome back to another episode of the Bound to Improve podcast, where we read a book a week and we try to break down the challenging, complex ideas in that book and turn them into actionable steps for progress. My name is Chris Pound.
My name's Landon Eller.
And the book that we will be continuing to talk about this week is Think and Go Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Yeah, so for another quick recap on who Napoleon Hill is, he grew up in the early 1900s and he had a rough start to his life. He grew up in poverty. He was actually orphaned at age 12, but he really found his niche at age 13 when he began writing for local newspapers. And this developed and grew, and he decided to go into journalism when he was in college and use that journalism degree to fund his law school. But he caught a break when he was tasked with the assignment to go and interview Andrew Carnegie, who then turned around and gave Hill the idea or the goal to interview a whole bunch of millionaires and find out what was their secret to their success, whether in terms of how they acquired their riches or in terms of happiness, etc.
Yeah, last week we covered 4 main principles. First being specialized knowledge, then we went to imagination. From there, we jumped to organized planning, and the last thing we covered was decisions.
Moving right into the first principle we'll discuss, it is persistence. And how kind of I interpreted from what Hill said was, first you have your desire, your definite purpose, or like your why statement. And that's like lighting some small kindling on fire, and it's just a small little fire that's just, it burns inside you, but it's not very bright.
Yeah.
Where persistence comes into play is like adding gas on that fire and really ignites that flame from desire. And Hill argues that it can be cultivated through your mindset, through your environment, and through your habits. And this goes back to the books we read, like Start With Why by Simon Sinek or Atomic Habits by James Clear. It's all about forming those things to really put that persistence within you.
And when it comes to persistence, you guys have to realize, including ourselves, we have to realize that no matter what we're trying to get through, we will always be faced with difficulties or challenges or different types of failures. And I think the longer you become, or the longer you stay persistent in that pursuit of your burning desire for your happiness, the more likely that in the end it will work out.
So let me try to convey it to you and see if that makes sense. So like, you need that persistence to chase after your desire. And the brighter your persistence is, the more opportunities you're going to have to fail. And the more opportunities you're going to have to fail, the more opportunities you're going to have to iterate. And when you iterate faster, then you're going to see success come faster.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to wrap up persistence.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So the next thing you kind of talked about was mastermind. And this goes back to having specialized knowledge, know where to call it from. So I actually wrote down the definition of mastermind that he used. And it is coordination of knowledge and effort in a spirit of harmony between 2 or more people for the attainment of a definite purpose. What are your thoughts on mastermind?
I think it's something that everybody has to incorporate, especially if you're trying to build something bigger than yourself, right? Because like we've mentioned before, you're never going to be able to, you're always going to be able to do more with more people than you are by yourself, right? Because he's got different knowledge on things than I do, and I've got different knowledge on things than he does. And so if we're able to bounce ideas and different potential objections that we may face in the future, I think we can kind of find a clear path to follow. We kind of keep each other balanced, and I think that's the key of the mastermind, is that they keep each other balanced, right? He knows he's better at certain things than I am, and I know he's better at certain things than I am. So if I can play to his strengths and he can play to my strengths, which alternatively are actually his weaknesses and which are my strengths, or what are my weaknesses or his strengths, it all kind of blends together. And throughout all the different books we read, having a group of people that are like-minded for one goal will expedite your success.
Yeah, 2 things to add on there. One, I think, yes, like you play on each other's strengths and weaknesses, but it also enhances the group's ability to come up with new ideas, new imagination, or when I throw out something that came up from my imagination and give it to you, that might unlock a whole bunch of more ideas.
Yeah.
And it's like he gave the example of a battery. How much energy can one battery give off versus if you have a bunch of batteries powering the same thing?
Yeah.
Then the other side of the coin is the people you surround yourself to is who you become. So it goes back to the saying, the 5 people you spend you're the average of the 5 people you spend your most time with.
Yeah, I mean, you are your environment.
Yep.
Right. And so the people that you surround yourself with are eventually who you become. So if you want to achieve something more than what you're achieving now, you kind of have to, you really, and unfortunately, you kind of do need to lose certain types of friends, right? There are always people who are going to be dragging you down in life. And the quicker you cut ties with those people, the quicker you're going to be able to come up afloat again, right? It's about thriving rather than just surviving. If you feel like in life right now you're just simply surviving day by day, what can you do in order to eventually become thriving in your life again? And a lot of times it's cut off the people in your life who are dragging you down. And I think with the mastermind group as a whole, when you have a group of collective individuals with the same idea or the same passion for something, there's no possible way for it to be pulling you down, right? I mean, the only thing that they can do is lift you up.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to add there. So we'll cover one more principle here, and we've skipped a couple, and we're also going to cut it off after this one because I think it gets more ideological from here on out versus more scientific or actionable based. So the last thing we'll touch on here is the subconscious mind, and Hill describes it as the link between your conscious and the infinite intelligence. So what does that mean? I think of it as you have a whole bunch of thoughts that come into your head every single day. Then when you charge these thoughts with emotions, positive or negative, then these get transported down into your conscious mind through the principle that we talked about in the first episode on Think and Grow Rich of autosuggestion. Then your subconscious kind of communicates it to the infinite intelligence, which Hill argues is like a deity or just the universe. And then the universe will give that back to you in terms of an idea, an opportunity. So if you fill your subconscious with positive thoughts and positive ideas about possibility of what you want to accomplish, then the infinite intelligence is going to give it back to you in the form of ideas on how to create that plan.
Yeah, do you believe that your subconscious mind is actively shaping your reality even when you're not necessarily thinking about it?
Yeah, I would say so. And I think what he described there is a little too ideological for me.
Okay.
What I think I believe in is the idea of repeating positive affirmations as well as having your emotionalized thoughts stick. So like if you keep telling yourself you are what you think. So if you keep feeding positive thoughts into your head constantly throughout the day, how are you going to be a negative person?
Well, think about David Goggins and his mirror challenge, right? Look in the mirror and say every bad thing about you in the mirror, right? Face that fear. This is completely different, right? This is the other side of the mirror per se. This is you telling yourself that you're doing good, or you're the positive reinforcement. How do you think that? Do you feel like you can use both to your advantage?
Yeah, I forget who said it. I don't know if it was like Patrick David in his book Your 5 Next Moves, but like use those negative things about you, like how Goggins did, or what people say, as like rocket fuel to achieve what you want to achieve. But at the same time, like be able to reach into your cookie jar, all your positive experiences, what you've been through, what you have accomplished, to also propel you. So I do think it's a two-sided coin.
So you need to celebrate the small successes as well.
Yeah.
But don't forget about the failures, right? Learn from the failures. So it's also important because Hill mentions that your subconscious mind cannot differentiate between positive and negative, right? So if you're trying to feed it both, it's only going to pick one to cultivate. So if you're constantly thinking bad things, then unfortunately Hill is saying that those bad things will come into fruition. But if you turn it around and only think positive things, or things that will improve your everyday life, those things will also come into fruition. So it's extremely important to only be feeding your subconscious mind the good things that will improve your everyday life.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
Gotcha.
And that, we'll keep it short and sweet for this episode. That wraps up our couple episodes of Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I hope you guys enjoyed, but now we'll actually get into our implementation from Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah, so our implementation for this week, after reading this book, we both decided that we really want to work and drill down on these 6 steps. And earlier I was at Landon's house and I actually saw that he had a note card with the 6 steps on it.
And I don't even think it's so much about the 6 steps, because like even I was doing some research about the book, and people called him just as phony as the rich dad poor dad guy. So I think it's what you can extract from the book, and I think it's really just tailoring your why statement or your purpose, which we have done in past implementations, and giving it more definiteness, almost like saying, making it more actionable.
Yeah,
almost.
it definitely needs to be actionable, right? If you can't if you can't plan out how you're going to implement something, then it's not going to work at all, right? You need to be able to plan it out. And moving on to our favorite quotes from this week's section, starting off with mine is, all people have become what they are because of their dominating thoughts and desires. And I think this goes back into, you are your thoughts, right? You are your environment. The more you think about something, the more likely it is to become a reality, especially if you truly back up that desire with faith and belief. Because when you mix in emotion with your subconscious mind, it becomes a very desirable pair, right? It likes being able to come together. And when you have a burning desire mixed in with the belief, or the faith that this burning desire will become true. Think, for instance, Hill's son with no ears, right? He was never supposed to hear, but Hill had that burning desire that he was going to help his son hear regardless of what it would take. And he believed it. He had faith in the idea that he was going to be able to do this, and it actually became reality. So if you can think about things in your head and visualize yourself actually seeing these things take progress, right, the more likely it is to become your reality.
Yeah, the only limit to what you can create is your imagination.
Yeah.
And I think what you said was good, because it was more actual versus what Hill said throughout the book. He used terms like the ether, the infinite intelligent, kind of seemed far-fetched, very ideological, so it didn't really resonate with me, maybe not some of the readers. But my quote that I have is more tailored to, at the very beginning of the book, Hill talks about when he was interviewing Andrew Carnegie, and he gave the secret, and he left it very ambiguous. He told the reader, you're going to have to figure it out. So I think my quote plays into that, and it's a quote from Plato, and he said, the first and best victory is to conquer self. To be conquered by self is of all things the most shameful and vile. So the secret that I think the book was trying to convey is, it's all up to you. Like, your thoughts make up who you are. So how do you build up that foundation or that strong mindset in terms of how you live your life? Because if internally you're happy, then there's no external thing that happens that can sway that.
Yeah. I think you hit the secret right on. I think it really is up to you to get what you want out of life, right? You have to be willing to put in the time and the effort in order to reap the benefits of that. So I think your quote really does play right into the secret. So that pretty much wraps up our little summary on Think and Grow Rich. Now, we did not cover every principle within the book. I highly encourage you guys to check it out. We actually have our affiliate link in the description below. Next week, we will be reading Flow by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. It seems like an interesting book. I've heard good things about it, and I'm excited to have the ability to dive into it.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you guys for tuning in, and make sure to check us out on
All of our socials, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all at Balance to Improve. See you next week.